what we're looking at here are all the parts that we need to convert our BMW 733 to a standalone ECU instead of the BMW ECU. Why am I doing this?
Because you're an idiot.
Well, the reason why I'm doing this is because I cannot get the idle proper using the old Motronic system. It was the earliest form of fuel injection and it just doesn't work to idle the car properly. I also want more information about my engine.
Y'all need to tell me what I need to know.
Like the actual temperature and the information about how it is running so I can tune it, maybe add a little more power, but either way, make it a lot more drivable. So what do you need for this conversion? Well, you need a wiring harness that's from a Motronic 1.3. Now this car has a Motronic 1.0, but the engine is basically the same. So we have a wiring harness here from a Motronic 1.3. Probably gonna need a little bit of work. There are certainly lots of things we're not gonna need because we're going to a standalone ECU.
I definitely don't need it.
This is the part I'm really nervous about, getting all this hooked up. Then what we need is a trigger wheel. So the Motronic 1.3 system goes off of the two sensors that are in the bell housing for the transmission. This system goes off of a sensor that goes on a trigger wheel for the balancer. So the harmonic balancer needs to have teeth. So we have this piece right here, which will fit over top of the harmonic balancer that's already on the car and give us the teeth that we need. Then we need this sensor right here, which is the cam position sensor, and the mounting hardware in order to mount the cam position sensor. This wiring harness already has that stuff wired in, whereas the Motronic wiring harness does not. Now you could go with a 159 BMW ECU that's out of a Motronic 1.3, and that is legitimate. But I was hesitant to do that because those are made for the 135 engine. I have the 133 engine. I wanted to be sure that it was tunable and all that stuff. So I went with the Mega Squirt Plug and Play 2, which once again is made for the 135, but it's 100% tunable because the configuration of the engine is exactly the same and all that other stuff. This will wire up. And your standard throttle position sensor, although the throttle position sensor is included in the harness that I got, but it will work with the standard one that's included on the original car. So theoretically, we didn't have to go any further than what's on the table here to standalone ECU our car, but we did. Now this tube is going to replace our mass airflow sensor, and it's going to have an air temperature sensor, and that's to give us a more accurate reading. And then we went with the throttle position sensor that is going to be much more than the one provided on the car. The standard throttle position sensor is on full throttle and off, and that's basically it. So this will give us the whole range, make things a lot easier to tune. And we have the mounting hardware for that particular throttle position sensor. We also want to be able to tune this properly, so we went and got a really good wideband O2 sensor that's going to give us the ability to see what sort of fuel ratio we have coming out of our exhaust. And these are not necessary, but they are things I wanted to make the car tunable so that I can get it exactly how I want it. Now the other reason that I decided to go in the direction of a full standalone ECU is that later down the road it gives me the ability to add a turbocharger or a supercharger if we want to just go nuts and really make this thing fun. Now that wasn't my intention to begin with because, let's be honest, this is a cruiser. It has 190 some horsepower. That doesn't make merging very confidence inspiring. So if it had 250 horsepower, it probably still wouldn't be able to do a burnout, but I'll bet you I'd be able to merge on the highway without terrifying my wife. So we may consider turbocharging this thing for a little more fun later on. And the system that I'm putting in here gives us the ability to do that. So I want to walk you guys through how you can put a standalone ECU in your E23 or E24 or E28 or even the E30s.
No.
Any of these cars with the M30 engine are going to be basically exactly the same.
Oh shit, here we go again.
So you're gonna run into the same problems, have the same questions, and hopefully this video and the series of videos where we're putting this ECU in the car are going to answer those questions.
I'm gonna have to go ahead and sort of disagree with you there.
Because I'm going to be learning right along with you. So it should be fun.
Got him!
You know what? Let's go ahead and get to it. This is the new wiring harness right here. And the old wiring harness, I haven't taken out the car yet, runs here and runs down along here and then runs into the firewall right here. As you can see with this new harness, which is gonna sit down in here underneath the throttle body here and then run along the firewall, well, as you can see, this is not going in there.
That's what she said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, on the original engine that this harness was from, had a waterproof box right here that had the ECU in it. But you can't tune your car from inside the car if your ECU box is sitting right here.
Good one.
And I also don't have a waterproof box.
Really? Nothing.
And I really want to have the ECU for this car in the same place that it is in this car. And that would be right inside this kick panel right here is where the ECU is in the BMW. So we're gonna go ahead and take this harness apart and extend the wires for this connector.
Somebody stop that fucking dog!
So that it will go through the firewall and into here. And that means we're probably gonna add about 25 inches of wire on here. So let me show you how we're gonna do that. So we went to Harbor Freight and we picked up this, which has all different gauges and colors of wires that we're going to be able to use to extend our harness. But as you guys probably already know, since you've seen me try it before, I am not a soldering god. I'm not even remotely good at soldering.
You know what? I'm not going to get sucked into this.
So we're going to use these connections right here. And what these are is you put one wire in one side, one wire in the other, you heat it up, and there is solder in here that will solder your two connections together. And since the wiring loom is 50 wires, this hopefully will save us a heck of a lot of time. So we've got a heat gun that we've got from Harbor Freight. We got this stuff on Amazon. There's going to be links in the description if you want to try this yourself. And we've got some wiring loom cover that we got from Harbor Freight as well. So let's go ahead and try to extend this harness.
I want him found. Not tomorrow, not after breakfast, now!
First thing we're gonna have to do is remove this rubber boot, as much as I don't want to. It is a very nice rubber boot, but it isn't gonna fit in our hole anyways.
No, you cannot joke about that.
Yeah, that's not funny.
This smaller one might, but it's not gonna do us any good because we need access to the entire harness. So we're gonna cut it off.
Okay, I'm waiting for the punchline.
There's no punchline.
Now these right here and these right here are probably dash wiring. I'm not totally certain. I won't know until I get the other one out of the car. So we probably will extend these eventually at some point. But for now, we're not going to worry about it. We are also not going to worry too much about extending these unless they go in that way, which it looks like they all do. We might have to pull the other harness out to see which of these need to be extended and which of them should be outside the firewall. So I think I have a plan of attack here. These two connections, I believe, need to go inside the firewall, there to run gauges and that sort of stuff. All of these relays here are outside the firewall on my car. I'm gonna leave them outside the car on this wiring harness as well. These two as well, we're gonna leave outside the firewall. Hopefully that's not a mistake, but we shall see. Basically, these wires here and these, there are 4 shielded wires here, 3 here, and then 1 right here, which we're going to extend as well. None of this wiring is shielded, so I have a solution for that we're gonna tackle when we get to it. But for now, we're gonna go after extending these, and we're gonna do 24 inches of extension to guarantee that we're gonna have plenty of space and room.
No!
And it also will give us the ability to stagger our extensions just a little bit so that we don't have to worry about a big anaconda-sized
My anaconda don't want.
extra pile of wire here. I guess there's nothing left to do but to get started, so let's do it. So we have 4 wires left. These 3 and this one. I'm relatively certain this is a ground that goes into the loom over here. And so I think this is just 1 wire. However, these 3 are bundles of probably these small wires here that are shielded. We're gonna deal with these in a bit, but we'll do this one first. And we'll see what we got. Because I could be wrong. No. But I don't think so. Yeah, this is just a single ground wire. So what we have here is 10 gauge wire in the center with copper shielding around the outside. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect the 2 10 gauge wires in the center. Then we're going to recreate the shielding on the outside. I'll show you how we're going to do that. I'm actually waiting for something to come in that will do that for us.
I have a package for you.
The first thing we have to do is just go ahead and extend these center wires. So we're gonna do that. Got one side looking pretty good. One more to do. All that's left is to add the shielding back onto here. And as soon as I get the equipment to do that, okay, let's take a look at what's in these right here. Okay, so we've got shielding and 2 wires in here. So we're going to extend those 2 wires and we're going to deal with the shielding later. Last wire before we have to put the shielding back on. You're getting very close to having a fully extended harness that we're going to have to test thoroughly once we get this finished. Well, that's a complete harness minus the shielding. So this wire and then these sets of blue wires here are going to need to be individually shielded, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that.
A few moments later.
So now we're to the part where we have to fix our shielded wires. The main wire is there, but the wire is also shielded all the way down, and it has to have connectivity or conductivity. So we're going to use some copper foil tape. It's double-sided and it's conductive on both sides and all that kind of stuff. It also repels slugs, just in case, you know, that's a thing you need.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
But we're going to cut this to size along here, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it around our wire to carry out the conductivity throughout the entire wire. At least that's the plan.
I love it when a plan comes together.
So we've got some small areas that we need to repair. Super easy with this stuff. Since it's conductive on both sides, you don't have to worry that it's not going to be producing what you're looking for.
5 minutes later.
There does not appear to be any breaks in the shielding or anything. This looks like what we want. So the last thing I'm going to do is just cover these up to protect them with
These nuts.
I might try to find smaller ones. These are kind of on the large side.
No footlongs.
I know. They make you uncomfortable.
Yeah, these are probably way too big.
Giggity-googa.
That's the plan. We're going to cover them up with some sort of a thing that runs all the way down. Alright, now we've got our wires shielded, and there's no big secret to shielding these wires. You just want to make sure that they're fully covered with foil. Then we're just gonna wrap them with these sheaths here to protect them. So you'll notice we got a multimeter here, because the next thing we want to do before we wrap up this entire harness is check the pinouts to make sure that they go to the proper plugs and we have continuity. And of course I don't really know what most of these plugs are, because this is a different harness than the one that's on the car. So I'm also going to be able to label everything once I actually pin it out to what it's supposed to go to. So here's what the ECU tells me everything is supposed to go to. And so all I have to do is go to pin 1, find the spark output, and then find the spark output over here. And once we do that, well, then we're going to know that everything is wired properly and none of this caused any continuity problems. So it's one of the things that you kind of have to do when you're going to extend your harness. So it extends the time that it's going to take to actually do this. So we're going to go ahead and get to figuring all this stuff out. A lot of the new wiring harness is buttoned up and extended in length, and we have all these pinouts tested and checked. I'm gonna have to cut it off right there. We have a lot of practically brain exploding information coming on this ECU build, but if I put it all in one video, it'd be like an hour and a half long, and
Ain't nobody got time for that.
we're going to go ahead and release this in 3 parts. And you don't have to wait every single week. We're gonna do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So the next part of this series is gonna come out on Wednesday. You're going to be able to see us continue to put the ECU in this bad boy.
Yeah!
Now, if you happen to be watching this in the future, there's going to be a playlist at the end of the video and in the description that's going to link to all of the ECU videos so that you can get your idle squared away, no matter which M30 car you actually have. Because this isn't just for the E23. This will work on any car that has the same engine, and there are a lot of them. The E24, the E28, and many, many more. It's going to be a lot of fun. We go through a lot of things, and there's a lot of great information about putting an ECU in your BMW E23. So you definitely don't want to miss it. Now, why am I spending all this time and money on this old beat up BMW 733 that isn't worth anything?
Let's ask her. Maybe she knows. What say there, fussy britches? Feel like talking? Guess not.
Well, it could only be for the love of cars. And if this idiot can figure it out, I know you can too. So go out there and find that car that you always wanted that's sitting in a field doing nothing. Put it back on the road and have some fun. And I'll see you guys in the next video.